this is Jaromir again. Let's take a look on the LabConfig itself, what you can specify in the lab and how to work with LabConfig. So either you can just double click it. This is really useful for the quick edits. So this is just an ordinary notepad. But you can also select run, you can also right click and select edit. This will open PowerShell ISE. And as you can see in the text, there are just 2 lines that are colored. The others are just green. So let's take a look what's there in the LabConfig itself. So here's a lab admin and there's a lab password. These 2 values can be changed only before create parent disks. As you can see here, everything is described in here. So let's do one thing. So this one is quick share LabConfig, where you can just send someone 2 lines, or this is also what I do, that in the LabConfigs I specify what LabConfig should be used. So let me just show you. So there are scenarios, and let's pick one random, like this converged one. And that is LabConfig, so I just share necessary lines. So you can just share these 2 lines or even this with this LabConfig, but it's up to you how you will do it. So let me show you one thing, and that's if you just remove these lines, there is advanced LabConfig. So I just uncommented the section where I discuss what's actually every configuration in detail. So this is the default LabConfig you can modify. So you can say, I don't want to have lab admin, I would like to have my name. I would like to have different password maybe. I don't like this prefix, so it can be like that. Switch name can be whatever, but this is not necessary at all. A secure boot, this one is useful if you have daily builds. Inside Microsoft we have daily builds that are unsigned, therefore secure boot has to be disabled. DC can be even data center core. Or we can also create a client machine, Windows 10. Client can be even professional, or let's keep enterprise here. If you decide to install a CVMM, you can say yes. There's a separate video explaining it. If you would like to have additional networks, here you can specify what networks should be created. So in case you would like to have, for example, networks for, I don't know, storage replica in this case. So you don't want to play with more networks and in the scenario itself, and you would like to already have some additional networks. So, for example, in storage replica, I presume that there are already 2 addressed adapters that I'm using for storage replica. As you can see, there is network storage 1, storage 2, storage 3. In this example, it's described with network name, prefix for the addresses, what VLAN should be used, and what subnet. So if you say yes, these networks are also added into the DC. You can say what domain name and NetBIOS name should be used. So it doesn't have to be corp, it can be like this. And OU name, this is the OU for where everything will be created. So it can be, I don't know, Prague. Allowed VLANs, the VLANs that are configured. And then if you would like to have internet or not, this will set up routing and remote access on the DC machine and connect the DC machine to the external adapter. So your lab has internet. Pool server on the DC, this is for pull server DSC. It has to be specified to false if you are using I think Insider. In Insider it's buggy, or even 1709, not sure now. But one of these configs has pull server false. And then there are lab VMs. What you can specify in the lab VMs, there are more examples, so you can pick whatever you want. So for example, if you would like to have 2012 R2 or 2012 R2 core. In this case, because I modified password and username, this lab config will no longer work with just this deploy. You would have to create your lab from the scratch. If you would like to create your lab from the scratch, let me show you how. So there are no VMs now. I'll just say that I would like to download the scripts again to some separate folder. Euro open. I will create some new folder, WS 2016 lab test. Extract the zip file into here. Modify LabConfig with my new one. And so you can see that there are my passwords configured and everything. And then what you can do is to copy parent disks. So let me copy tools, 16 with GUI, 16 core, 16 nano, and copy it into the parent disks folder. It will take a bit. So in meanwhile, let's run prereq. Let's take a look where this password will apply. So to edit LabConfig is really necessary to do before if you are modifying password, domain, and so on, because you need to create DC with all these passwords and everything. So if you'll take a look in the tools VHD, and there is a CVMM script, in CVMM install PS1, I think it's here, there are passwords hard-coded. So as you can see here, there is password for service accounts. So if you would do it after that and you would try to install a CVMM, it would fail, right? So this is one reason why you should modify LabConfig even before prerequisites. So modules are being downloaded now. Again, if you don't have internet, you can copy over this folder from the internet connected machine. That takes a bit of time. So let's wait. Took 1.6 minutes, and let's now run create parent disks. Because we already have parent disks created, it will just proceed and create a DC. It will create DC from scratch, so you don't have to wait for creating parent disks. So as you can see, I have Windows 10, so let me just hit cancel. And let me just say that I would like to also have Windows 10 machine, so I can show you that it will even skip the Windows 10 creation, because I said I would like to have Windows 10. So it's basically looking for the Win10 G2 VHDX. If it will be found, then it will not continue. If you specify that you would like to have a data center core, it knows that this 2016 core is data center core, so it will be reused. If you will use GUI for the DC, it will be looking for this image. If you will specify your own names, which you can do actually, because in the lab config you can say what what VHDs should be created and what packages should be added. For example, in this nano server, then yeah, for example, you can say already like you would like to create GUI version like that, right? So say data center, not core, just data center, and say maybe 60 gigabytes, and this will also do this stuff. But let me just run create parent disks again. Restart it as admin. So as you can see, everything was found. So everything was found, everything will be skipped, so we are just proceeding directly into the DC hydration. So let's continue. So now it's creating DCVM, so we didn't have to wait for a huge amount of time, it was really fast. That would be one more thing, if you will decide to, you know, stop in some point like now, and you'll just close it like that, and nothing was like created, and you are in middle of something, then okay, you can just delete the machine from here. Sometimes if the VHD is already was being processed, then there is a mount there, and it's not possible just to delete it, right? Because it's possible, okay. But the problem is that the disk was mounted in the VHD was mounted, right? So into this mount directory. So you have to detach it. So DISM was processing the VHD itself. So you have to clean it up, right? There's an unattended that was created and more files that were created. So let me create this delete this temp file. Let me delete this DC, and also if the VHDs would be created, you would also see disks mounted, the ISO files mounted here. So now we should be able to proceed again with create parent disk. Maybe you will be able to see the bug, which I sometimes also see, that if the mount there is somehow, I don't know, let's say corrupted or something, then it will not be able to mount it here again. But let's see. So DCVM is being created now. To mount the VHD here, so VHD is mounted, that's great. So create the AC configs, copy it into the and applying changes to the VHD, and now it will just start DC. So DC is now being started with answer file injected and more fast injected. So the script will just, check if the DC is configured or not. I'll pause the video now, and after I will just start recording again. I will show you if the my domain was configured, if it's Europe, if it's Microsoft.com domain, or if Jaromir K user is there, and if the password is a password we specified in the lab config. So now you can see that DC creation finished after 14 minutes or 15 minutes, so which is significantly less than if you would do this with the traditional way without the parent disks. So let me say no, I don't want to clean up the unnecessary files. And now what we can do is to just run deploy to deploy WS 2016 lab, just to see what we have here. So this is being imported. It's called Yarmir K lab now, as we specified in LabConfig. Oh, we have even we have core server. Didn't expect that. So let's see. It should boot soon. So now we can log in. Let's hit Control Delete. Where the password is specified in the password we specified in LabConfig. So it's me, Yarmir K. Yeah, in Europe. Let's open up the PowerShell. Let's take a look in. Let's get 80. I don't know. Something 80. We have something like organization unit. Object organization unit. Yeah. Let's try filter right. So these are organization units. So we have our FT name. So there is our Prague organization unit. So looks fine. So this is probably it. If you would like to run some scenario, just replace the LabConfig and take a look. And if you would like to play more, just inspect what's in the description. Just scroll down, and I try to explain everything. And if you didn't find something and you would like to have something in the lab, just let me know. Okay, so now I can do cleanup. Even if it's in middle, you can just close it. Just say clean up. Then it depends where you were. Sometimes if in the temp is mounted there, and if it's mounted, then you have to unmount the VHD. But otherwise, you can just say clean up and just run it PowerShell. And let's remove it, and that's it. Pretty fast. Okay, so that was the LabConfig, and see you next time.